So, welcome to the first episode of Diversity Matters in 2025. I'm your host, Teresa Palacios Smith, and this year we're continuing our commitment to impactful conversations that celebrate diversity and inclusion in real estate. And what better way to start off the year than by exploring innovative solutions to the housing shortage and the housing industry and the power of leadership in creating inclusive communities. And today I'm honored to welcome Noerena Limón, who is the Chief Executive Officer of the Casita Coalition. And she has over 16 years of experience in public policy, housing advocacy, and community engagement. Norena's impressive career includes serving in the Obama administration. So cool. So cool, Noerena. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the National Association of Hispanic Real Estate Professionals, which is how I got to meet Noerena. And now she's leading the Casita Coalition in addressing the housing crisis with innovative solutions like accessory dwelling units, also known as ADUs, and other ideas. So, Noerena, it's a privilege to have you with us. Welcome to Diversity Matters.
Oh, Teresa, it's so good to see you. This is such a treat just so I can spend time with you. So thank you so much for inviting me.
And I love it. And I know right now, I just want to go with a little bit serious because I know you're based in California, the
Yeah.
organization's there, which has been devastated by the ongoing wildfires affecting the LA area. So, how's your team and how are you holding up in light of this displacement and the fires have caused for so many individuals and families? Because I know last time we talked, you were in the midst of a crisis, right?
Yeah, thank you, Teresa, for asking. I mean, it's been a rough couple of weeks for all Southern Californians, especially those that are in the Los Angeles region. I think at this point, we all know someone in Southern California. We all know someone who's lost everything, and uh, we see there's been multiple fires. We just got news that there's multiple fires in San Diego County, which is where I'm based as of yesterday. So it's horrific. That's all I can say. We have a long path forward for our recovery as a state, but we know that this is going to have repercussions for our housing ecosystem, especially given the insurance implications of all of this. So it's been heartbreaking to see, and it's still not over. So we're in the middle of it, but we will rebuild. We will all come together, and I think these are the moments where we see beautiful communities coming forward, and everybody wants to do something. As we see everything unfold, whether outside of our doors or through the TV, I've seen everyone just come together and figure out how we can be a part of the solution, which is a beautiful thing to see.
I couldn't agree with you more. And one of the things I saw yesterday was we talked to, we had a meeting within our company and we talked to some of the companies that are in the hurricane, like in Florida, that have dealt
Yeah,
with devastating hurricanes in the past. And the one thing that came out of it is the way homes have been built now, based on the experiences of the hurricanes that did devastate and tore a lot of the cities down and how building has improved because of that. And I think that's something that we hope will come out of, this new situation or scenario that you're experiencing out in California, because I know that y'all are pretty earthquake sustainable, but is there a
right.
possible way to create housing that's more, sustainable against fires, right? I think that's something that you can certainly look into. So talk about your role at the Casita Coalition, which is very exciting. And I can't imagine that right now what you do is just more important than ever, especially because ADUs may be helping a lot of families who have been displaced
Yeah.
and being able to provide that housing necessary to be able to support, scenarios in people's backyard, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, like you were saying, I just came on board as CEO of the Casita Coalition as of October of last year. So I'm still new to the role, but very proud to be leading this initiative. The organization Casita Coalition was responsible for what has now been considered California's ADU revolution. So when we look at California's housing crisis, which is the most acute in the nation, the success story that's come out of the state is what we've been able to do with ADUs. And I'll talk a little bit more about how we did that in a little bit. But our organization works on advocacy, it works on implementation efforts, it works on workforce development, education, uh, all when it all having to do with addressing our housing supply crisis through middle housing. Some people call it missing middle housing. Some people call it gentle density. It's essentially addressing the fact that 70% of our housing is zoned for single family. And when we have as acute of a housing crisis, I mean, we've all heard the numbers, right? That, uh, we're in the millions, 3.5 million houses short. When we're in as big of a hole as we are, we really have to think creatively about what we do with that 70% of housing that's zoned for single family. And it's, one of the things that we focus on at the organization is restoring some of the housing choice that is available to neighborhoods. This was very common in previous communities, like previous to a lot of the exclusionary zoning. There were, a lot of townhomes and row homes and duplexes and fourplexes and neighborhoods. If you go to the older neighborhoods, you see that a lot more.
You don't see that as much, right? In
No,
the new
no,
construction and new building
no.
zones. Yeah.
But it allows to ensure that there are housing types depending on where families are, and to meet them where they are, and to have choice and multi-generational living, and a housing variety also builds community. So this is what we've been focused on at the Casita Coalition. It's this concept of missing middle housing. And we have been very successful in California, especially starting on with ADUs. And we've seen that across the country. We've been working with states all around the country. Uh, we learned from Oregon and Washington. We've been working with Colorado, with Arizona, Montana, and now many on the East Coast as well are looking to do statewide ADU policies, which offer a very critical first step to reform, to zoning reform, to addressing our housing supply uh, challenges in a way that is politically feasible. It's a way that it's almost invisible density. So you have a neighborhood, and sometimes you don't see the ADUs that are in the back. You don't see the duplexes that are in the back. You still maintain that neighborhood feel, and which, as many of us know, a lot of the challenges having to do with our housing supply crisis is our fear of change as communities, is our fear that our neighborhood, our perfect neighborhood, is not going to look like it used to before. Unfortunately, we all have to evolve and embrace the beauty in change. So this is a lot of the work that we've been doing, and we've built a pretty strong coalition in California that's been successful, and we're working on building the coalition nationwide.
Well, one of the things that for those who may not understand the terminology that we use in the real estate
Yeah,
business, what's an ADU? Like, what if I
yeah.
don't know? Like, what does that mean?
It's an accessory dwelling unit. So look, this is for legislative purposes. This is what in code and city planning. It's a very wonky term, right? It's accessory dwelling units, but we all know what they are. They're casitas, and I mean that's why our name is Casita Coalition, because especially communities of color have invented this. We've been doing this forever, converting our garages, making a casita in the backyard so that our viejitos can live in the, so our grandparents can live there, or our parents, uh, or converted basements, um, and
Adding that space on the above the garage that can make an apartment,
exactly,
a shed that we now turn into.
exactly.
This is our space for nanny, for yeah.
Exactly. I mean, in Florida, they're called efficiencies. They can be called, backyard cottage. I mean, there's so many terms for what people may call, I mean, you can even call it a pool house. I mean, I don't know. I mean, there's so many different terms that could be used, but it's what it says. It's an additional unit that is added to a single family home. So
Right.
it is yeah, it's been something that, I mean, what's been so remarkable about what we've seen in California is that something, look, it's an ADU, it's something small, it's not a big deal. And what's interesting is that a lot of opposition, because our housing crisis is so large, some of the opposition to ADUs was, well, we have too big of a problem. We're not going to solve our housing crisis through ADUs. And little by little, it became one of the most effective housing strategies in California. And now there's 113,000 permitted ADUs in just a few years. So
Right.
it has been an astounding success story. And we are seeing that happen around the country as well.
And I think it's really important for us to look at the alternative housing solutions. And California's always been kind of, we always talk about, I remember with NAHREP, Juan Martinez, for those who know Juan, would always talk about the domino effect
Yeah,
that one state has where it starts here, it starts to dominate or domino across the entire country, starting out in California. Sometimes it starts here and then we see it implemented in other areas. So that is a great model, right, of something that really has worked in California, creating more housing supply and more opportunities. And of course, now today, but more than ever, you can see how that's going to really help
yeah,
with, the individuals that have been displaced in the LA area
yeah,
because of those options that people now have available to them. So I think that is so important as we look at cities like Atlanta and cities like,
yeah,
major cities, like Dallas, where you might not have the inventory available to help house all those that are wanting to live there and move there, because we have a lot of people coming out from California, that now it's giving those options for affordable solutions, especially for individuals that are marginalized communities. So, what are some other options for housing solutions that you think would work as well? Because I know you look at the big picture and that you think about all the different opportunities that you can create within our communities that might help rebuild and create more opportunities.
yeah. And I first want to address how it is that, because not all ADU policies are made equal, and I think we've learned a lot of lessons from California that we've been sharing, and not only California, from like we said, Montana, Washington, Oregon, New Zealand, Canada, uh, very British Columbia, Canada. I mean, we collected all of the case studies of successful middle housing reforms, and we created a document called Build the Middle. So it's a Build the Middle, it's a playbook for how to implement effective middle housing solutions. And one of the themes of this playbook is that incremental change is key. So we're not going to solve it all at once. It is the success stories that we've seen take years, of just refining and refining and refining. So in California, we've co-authored policies that legalize ADU statewide, but we did it by removing barriers like parking requirements, lot size restrictions, owner occupancy mandates, and we created a category of ADUs that all local agencies had to approve. So it's a plug and play box. And cities and counties could have objective standards, saying where they could go. Like, for example, they can use standards that can't preclude standards that preclude an 800 square feet, 16 feet tall detached ADU. This statewide consistency is what created the space for an industry to develop and grow. And I say this because this is key. And a lot of the times we see policies around the country, and we're like, oh, this is why it's not working. And that is, we offer technical assistance at our organization for that reason. But effective strategies is key in order to expand. You have to point to a success story in order to expand to the rest of the housing supply conversation. So in many places, it is very wise to start with ADUs. And because then you have a proof of concept for something that works and something that's not so scary, right? And requires limited, government public subsidy. And then we expand to additional housing supply. So duplexes or plexes, cottage clusters. One of the things that I'm really passionate about, Teresa, as you know, we both are, is how we bridge the racial wealth gap. And we do that, and given this is what you all do, is through the real estate industry, is how do we create wealth? How do we build? How do we ensure that there are starter homes for people to begin their wealth building journey? And a lot of our conversations nationwide have focused a lot around rental units, which are incredibly important, incredibly needed, and people, we need a lower rental price. We need to increase rental supply to lower rental prices so people can save for down payments. It is all part of the housing continuum. But the concept of starter homes is something I'm really passionate about, something that we're looking at a lot at the Casita Coalition. We've seen how places like Texas, places like Houston have passed limited lot size requirement, and it's spurred a townhome revolution. Where in Houston, townhomes are probably one of the things that are built the most, in which give that critical supply. We've in California, we've been so successful with ADUs that we've now passed a statewide bill that allows for cities to opt in so that ADUs can become condos. And this we learned from Portland, Seattle, Austin, Texas. These cities all do this, and they these housing supply products, these ADUs that are condos, create that critical starter home supply at $200,000 less than any other housing option in the market. So these are all part of the
Solutions
yes,
that
this
can
is all
help.
part of the work that we're doing, is how do we ensure that we're creative about land use? How do we ensure that we make it easy for us to build, and for us to diversify the housing types that we offer our community? This is what we've been working with. Um, this is what coalition members and advocates from around the country are currently working on. And it all comes down to, just wonky things like owner occupancy mandates or parking requirements or things like that, or setbacks. But the devil's in the details. These details matter in order to ensure effective policies.
Well, I like that you talk about this playbook and how it's really critical because not everything works everywhere. And so learning what does work and what can apply in your community is certainly going to be important so that it is successful in how you implement it. I know that the ADUs right now in many areas of the country are part of that person's home, right? So it
Yeah,
can't be sold separately. So knowing that states like, Oregon are creating condo
yeah,
options where now you're able to separate that and offer that to a first-time home buyer as a solution to build their wealth. It's certainly something I think that is going to create a lot of great opportunities for those who are not able to own because the cost of
exactly.
homes in that market may be unreachable. So, my biggest thing is too is the fact that there are, and we talk about the rental need as well, but there's so many large investor groups that have taken over what should be available for those first-time home buyers and have taken up that during the economic crisis that we did have in the housing, just swept them up, right? In bulk and have now hold that because they realize that they can continue to raise those prices up and earn money versus releasing that for those that can really start to develop their own wealth instead of creating wealth for them. So that's another time for another story because because, it just, that's something that I'm really passionate about as well. Well, we
Yeah.
both share a connection, and I can't help but talk about that to NAHREP. And so, how did your time there influence your perspective on housing equity and also the part that I think I can see you're very passionate about, the community advocacy?
Yeah, I mean, I have so much love for NAREP and NAREP. I will always be a part of the NAREP family because it is absolutely an incredible community. I started my career in housing, working on housing finance work, and so I was at the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau while we were rewriting the mortgage rules to ensure that we didn't have a crisis to the likes of the one in 2008. And so my work was all around mortgages and access to credit, which is an incredible piece to ensuring that communities of color are building wealth, right? But when I went to go work at NAREP, it was around 2018, and that is when our housing supply crisis started to become the biggest issue in
Serious.
the conversation, the biggest barrier. It no longer at that point was it superseded our access to credit issues because our housing crisis was so acute. And so it was during that period that especially where communities of color live in the U.S., where they're concentrated, we weren't going to bridge the racial wealth gap if we didn't solve our housing supply crisis. And during my time at NAHREP is when I became extremely passionate about this issue and knew this was the next frontier. This is what we needed to tackle for our communities. It's the power of community, the power of ensuring that we all become advocates in this effort. When I was at NAHREP, I started the National Advocacy Committee, and our efforts were to empower all members to know their power, to know that if they picked up the phone and bugged their elected officials often enough, their calls will get answered. And there is no one that is experiencing this housing shortage as much as realtors, as much as these agents that are every day, looking to ensure that working class families are able to afford their first home. And experiencing that passion, that heartbreak that goes with both the passion, the joy, and the heartbreak that goes with the journey of buying a home. I think it is that was incredibly special to work in community with the NAHREP network in order to make our voices heard and to really leverage our power as individuals and as professionals that have our pulse on the ground in terms of what people are facing every day.
I can tell
So
you, Noerena NAC, which we all call by short, right, acronym.
yeah,
You did such an amazing job
thank you.
helping and guiding our leaders that are part of the organization because real estate and advocacy starts in your backyard. And I think you can really make a difference when you have the ears of the people that you are representing, right? And the individuals that are in government that are supposed to represent you, when you've got that impact, so strong because you know that what you're doing really does help and also influences the people that you're serving. And so I think you started something, I think that many of our, right now they miss it, right? Your leadership was amazing when you were involved with NAC. I know Rick Guerrero and Raquel Lavender, they both said hi.
Yeah,
They're from
aw,
Atlanta, and they both served
love for
as
them.
committee members of NAC. I think Magda Isa led it too. They just love being involved in that. And that was the first time that myself, when I was involved with NAHREP, so sharing this, that I really understood the power that I had as an individual with our government because I never realized that what I did by voting or going in to speak with my representative is something that I could do. Like, well, they have to see you. You're in there, you're their constituent. And so I think that was the first time I ever realized how true impactful you could be by working and talking to the officials that serve you.
Yeah, and I mean, real estate is a relationship game, and so is politics and advocacy. They're all part of the same game. And so if if you're out there networking all the time, you
You're
be
the
in the
boots
right
on the
places.
ground, right?
Yes, and share your stories with people that can do something about it. So that is, I think it goes hand in hand. Real estate and advocacy go hand in hand. Absolutely.
Couldn't agree with you more. So, one of the things that I always like to learn from our leaders, being that you're a woman, you're Latina,
Yeah.
we all face different challenges. And in your journey, have you or can you share any experiences that you have had and how they've influenced your style?
Yeah, it's interesting because when I've been in spaces where I'm the only Latina. I mean, obviously, prior to working at NAHREP, but an all Latino organization. But my career consisted of mostly being in spaces where I was the only Latina in the room. And well, I was in, especially in the housing finance space, housing finance policy in Washington D.C. I mean, I could name seven of us in that were in this space. So it is,
Small little window,
what's up?
a small little group, right?
Small little group. I mean, this is we started a group called Latinos in Housing in DC because of that, because there's so few of us, and the need for our voices. I mean, we I was involved with the writing of the State of Hispanic Homeownership Report, and demand is coming from communities of color. People of color are driving demand for home ownership given our demographics, and not being in the room is in when policies are being made is a huge disadvantage to everyone, to business, to our economy, to our policies, to ensure that policies are equitable. I mean, it is extremely important that we're there. But one of the things that I learned is how important it is for us to be in spaces where we're uncomfortable so that we can learn. I mean, my time at the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, I was young, it was my education. And I am so grateful for my time there because I was able to soak up all of the learnings of these, many incredible economists and folks that were there on the policy team. So just this is why it's really important to me to mentor the next generation of leaders to ensure that they're all in those spaces where they're learning and they're leaping. And so that was my experience. I have a whole team of mentees that I'm constantly working to ensure that we're developing that next generation of policy leaders. And we've we started an internship program. While I was at NAHREP, I started an internship program here at Casita Coalition because in the housing supply space, which is now where I am, because they're different spaces.
Yes.
And the housing supply space, the pro more housing space, or what some people call the YIMBY movement, all of that, it is not diverse at all. Again, I find myself as
Wow.
one of the only Latinas in the room, and the demographics that is not reflective of the demographics of this country. And anything that requires change requires it requires representation, demographic representation, so that we can guide our community. One of the leadership leaders that I really admire talks about adaptive leadership, and that in order to be an adaptive leader, you really have to hold space for communities to be comfortable with change, with the things that have to happen in order for change to occur. And so that is why it's so critical for our voices to be there. So that is part of my mission, is we've got to change that. We got to
Well,
mentor the next generation.
So important. You said so many tidbits that I think that were really important to just note. Number one, that the way you learn is by being uncomfortable. You have to
Yeah,
be uncomfortable because that's what creates that knowledge and strength that helps you go on to the next opportunity. I think you also talked about community engagement and how crucial that is in the housing
absolutely.
solution space, because how do you know what you need if you're not voicing it to the people that are making the decisions on your behalf? So, how do you ensure that the voices of those historically marginalized groups are heard and included in policy decisions? Because I think that's really important for everyone to know and for our realtors specifically.
Yeah, I mean, listening sessions. And for us, at the Casita Coalition, we are looking to work closely with community-based organizations because they really have um, close tabs on the community. But so do you guys. So do real estate professionals. You have tabs on what communities are going through and struggling with. But it's important to get all the different perspectives because one of the things that is important in public policy is that, I mean, this is part of the democratic the beauty of we're in a very polarized political environment right now, to say the least. But really, the beauty of democracy is that you if you have differing views, you always get and you iron out the different needs and the different concerns, you always get better public policy. And so that discourse is so important. And so, in our efforts, it's working with community-based organizations. I sit on the board of the California Housing Finance Agency, and community input is incredibly important to us, working with all the nonprofit organizations and professional organizations that are working directly with community members. We released a pretty noteworthy program at CalHFA called the California Dream for All program, which is a shared equity loan program that gives it's a 20% down payment loan that is that you pay back with depending on your equity that you build on the home. But it was an incredible program, huge demand for the program. We had our first ever in the country, first generation requirement in order to address racial wealth gap and for communities that haven't been able to build wealth. And we did a lot of listening sessions. I really commend CalHFA for all the listening sessions that they did. But that is critical to policymakers. You have got to understand how different communities are going to struggle with access and how different communities are going to react. What are the unintended consequences that might arise? These are all critical parts of the policymaking process.
And also, what are some of the things that are really achievable and not? Because
Yeah.
sometimes, you're assuming this or you say this, and then you're like,
Yeah.
well, I'm never going to be able to get in a house because there's nothing in that parameter, even if you gave me 20% down payment. Because
Yeah.
I've seen those responses too as well. So you got to really understand the markets, and the only way that you can is by realtors really getting involved in the process, who really understand their communities and how they work and what the entry level is and all the really technical logistics that are really important when you go to a policymaker who's only doing policy, not understanding what has to come first so
Yeah.
that you can move forward in the process.
Yeah.
So if I am a realtor, if I am a real estate, if I'm in a market, what steps do I do? Like, what do I do to really get involved? Like to help support initiatives like those of the Casita Coalition.
It's important to get involved with the organizations like ours, the Casita Coalition, or or NAHREP, or NAHREP, or ARIA, some of the various organizations that are out there, that as a united voice, I think those are incredible avenues for all of you. But I think it's also just really important for you to develop relationships with your elected officials. It's Who is your city council member? You should know them. Who is your state legislator? You should know them. You should know your representatives. You should develop friendships with your representatives. You are they are there because of you, and it is important that there is that conversation, that dialogue that occurs. So I think first and foremost, that is important, and then get involved with organizations. I think real estate agents also play a critical role in implementation of a lot of the efforts that we play. Like, for example, at Casita Coalition, we are very clear that some of the best advocates of homeowners building ADUs have become real estate agents. And so it's so important for you to get educated because there's a lot of changing legislation that and these nuances matter, especially when you're advising clients. If you're in California right now, we have something called the Casita Academy, which is a course that we do courses just for real estate agents that walks you through all those changes so that you're able to communicate with your clients the wealth building opportunities that ADUs provide. So these are just some of the ways.
Education, getting
Education.
involved, you need to be seen and heard by
Yeah.
those people
And
in your community
relationships.
and build
Relationships
those
too.
relationships, right?
Yeah.
That can help you understand and they understand also them understand what they can do and what you can do, right? Because
Yeah.
there's also a give in that space.
Yeah.
One of the things that I know, my husband was a nuclear physicist and engineer, and one of the things he always talked about was the NIMBY,
Mhm.
ideology of people never wanting, they needed nuclear power, they need electricity, but they don't want it built in their backyard, right?
They don't want
So you,
change. Yeah.
right? They don't want that, because I don't want density, I don't want this, but you have to come up with solutions. So how do you address, overcoming the local opposition
Yeah.
or, to housing solutions that really can help everyone?
I would love to share. I don't know how, Teresa, you let me know, but I would love to share with everybody our Build a Middle playbook that we wrote because we
I would
talked
love to
about
get
this.
it from you. Yes.
Yeah, and I'll share about Casita Academy
Yeah.
also if anyone's interested. But we wrote about this, and messaging matters. And this is, one of the things we struggle with within the housing supply movement is this concept of like this all this jargon, and because of all the opposition, we're really careful about how we speak. And then people are like, "What are you talking about?" But the messaging matters. And one of the reasons why ADUs have been so successful is because the values around ADUs, the way that we've been successful in advancing these policies, are very American values. It is my property. I bought this property. You have no right to tell me what I can and cannot build or do in my backyard. And these messages have been incredibly popular, no matter what political affiliation you have. That is something that is very real and something that you feel at your core. It is important that you leverage the values of the community, and these are different. In Montana, a very red state, they passed successful statewide ADU policies by a campaign saying don't California my Montana, which is which it worked. And so it depends on what is the local value of your city, and because I think we all know that housing is, we have a crisis. Especially all of us in the real estate industry or ecosystem. So we know there needs to be a solution. I think it's important for all of us also to educate clients and educate the community about what's causing the crisis. Because understanding what is behind the crisis and the massive underbuilding that we've had of housing, and some of the restrictive zoning practices that have limited the housing that's built, and all of the reasons. I think understanding that is so critical for us to be able to be effective in passing these bills and these laws that will create the vibrant communities that we all want for our next generation. We want to make sure that our children are going to be able to buy homes and our grandchildren.
Exactly, exactly. And housing is one of those necessities. You have to have shelter. You have to be able to have a place, to keep you covered, right?
Yeah.
In addition to it, it is the American dream. We are,
Mhm.
in the US, have that capability of owning something that is our own, like you were saying. I think that's really important and very key. And I think we have to come up with solutions that are, that do help us in areas where you see tons right now retail space that's left unused,
Oh
that
yeah,
is,
adaptive reuse.
causing, right? Let's come up with solutions that will help create living spaces for those who are wanting to achieve that dream of home ownership and provide opportunities for everyone to succeed in this space. So I love, love all that you have given the background of the Casita Coalition. I would love to be able to provide our members the information on how to access your playbook. We can
Yeah,
put it on a Diversity Matters website, which we have, and we can also have information as to tell us how to connect with you at the Casita
yeah.
Coalition. What do we do? Like, how do I get this information?
I'll send you, reach out to me at Noerena at casitacoalition.org. We'll put that information if you want to share it out.
I'll put that definitely.
We're also, in the process of distributing a document that shares some of the best practices that we've learned from the fires in Napa Sonoma on how to rebuild. And like you were saying, one of the things that Napa and Sonoma did is they quickly added capacity. They waived and reduced fees. They provided support beyond permitting. They allowed for people to build an ADU first so they can move into that to the ADU while they're rebuilding the home, and created incentives for that. There's a lot of lessons that we learned from the fires in Sonoma, in Maui, that we could be implementing today in the recovery. And we know that these disasters are happening everywhere. We have what happened in North Carolina. I mean, these disasters are happening all over the country. Very few areas of the country are being saved from these natural disasters. So we have to learn how to be nimble, and how to create processes to do effective rebuilding. So I will share that document as well.
Oh, I would love to see it, and I really appreciate it. I know members would like that too, so I'll make sure to put it on our website so people can grab it easily. All right, one of the things that I'd like to do as we end, and I can't believe our time has come to an end because I've enjoyed our conversation so much,
Me
Norena,
too.
is
Me too.
on a lighter note. I always like to have something fun that we can discuss. If
Yeah.
you could host a dinner party with three historical figures that are influencing, it can be in housing, it can be in civil rights, it can be whoever you wanted to invite, who would they be, and what would you talk about?
I mean, it would have to be MLK. It would have to be one of them. I mean, we just celebrated his birthday, but so many questions that I would have for him in terms of their incredible orchestrated movement that was so disciplined. That there's so many lessons to learn, that we can learn from in terms of what we're going through today. And he did a lot when it comes to economic mobility and housing as well.
Fair
I would,
housing. I mean,
yeah,
everything. Yeah.
yeah. I would, also Cesar Chavez. I would love to have Cesar Chavez there, and ask him again, just like they were so. I think one of the things that's so, um, aside from the incredible leaders that they were, as we're all leading these movements, they were all so intentional about symbolism and messaging in a way that moved hearts and minds like nobody else, and leverage the values of the community in such a brilliant way. Uh, so Cesar Chavez, I'm a theater nerd, and I learned about the civil rights movement, the Chicano movement. I learned about it through the playwright Luis Valdez, who started El Teatro Campesino in the Central Valley in California. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. And he's the one that wrote Zoot Suit and Los Vendidos, many other plays that were critical to my youth. So it'd be those three, although I need a fourth because I need a woman in there.
I love, first of all, we talked about Frida, so you're gonna have to have,
And Frida, yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
I can see her in your
Yeah. Oh
background.
my
So
goodness, what an amazing dinner.
right? You would have such a great dinner with all those individuals there with you to learn from and also to be able to experience what they experience. I love every one of the characters, individuals that you chose for sure, and I can relate to very those individuals as well. I really want to thank you, Norena, for giving us so much information, for sharing your background, your insights, and also we learn so much about the work that you're doing. Your leadership, first of all, is creating so many housing solutions and fostering such an inclusive experience for so many people. So it's really, truly inspiring. So thank you so much.
And thank you, Teresa, for everything you do in your leadership and everything you do for everyone in everyone that touches you. So I am lucky to be among those in your network, in your family. So I am so grateful for your mentorship as well in the mentorship that you provide to so many individuals. So thank you for having us, for having me, but also the Casita
That's
Coalition.
right. No, thank you again. I really do appreciate it, Nora. And it was great to see you. I know you were here in Atlanta with the Hope
I
Foundation. So
was, I was.
exactly. So I can't wait to see you again, hopefully in March, right?
Yes.
Uh, So, to our audience, thank you again for tuning in to the special first episode of the year. And we're going to be back on February 12th for Women Who Lead that I also do. And we've got some incredible series. We're going to feature elevated leaders, brand new leaders that have stepped into positions of power within their companies. And we're also going to be back here on the 26th of February to highlight our diversity champions on Diversity Matters. And those are the 2024 winners of the DEI awards that are given by Home Service of America to these companies that really do great work in the DE&I space. So I know you're not going to want to miss that. So as we close, let's keep our hearts in our hearts those that were affected by the devastating fires in California and the hurricanes on the East Coast because they're still also dealing with that, especially on the Carolina coastline. And if you can, please give to support those in need. And there's a lot of great organizations out
Yeah.
there that are really helping. And as we look at next, continuing to foster inclusion, and let's make 2025 a year of transformative impact. Thank you again, Norena, and thank you all. And we'll see you next time on the next Diversity Matters. Bye bye, everyone.
Bye.